Ziad, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, good evening. Good to see you all again. It's been a while.
Yeah. Oops. I guess, yeah, I mean, just looking for an update.
So yeah, in normal situation, would love to put the design drawings on the table and just go through them, but unfortunately, it just on screen, it just doesn't work that way. So I just put a quick PowerPoint presentation. I'll share my screen so that way you could see it.
Okay. Okay.
And let me know if you could see it.
Yeah.
We good?
No. Mine's mine's just like a line. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there
we go.
All right, it's on my other screen, so that's fine. It's good enough. So back in 2018, hard to believe it's been almost 2 years since we looked at this force main. We did the assessment, and I think I presented it to you at the DPW, was 2018. So just quickly through the agenda. It's only like 15, 20 slides. Should really take 15, 20 minutes, and maybe we'll open up for questions. Or you could just interrupt me anytime if you have any questions. So just quickly on the project background, you probably all know what this project is all about, how we got here, the assessment of the existing pipe, what the findings were. I just refreshed a little bit shortly here, and the alternative analyses that we conducted back in 2018. Today's scope of services, what we're under contract to do, and what we're up to, what we have done to date. Subsurface exploration, we did the initial ones back in 2018 during the assessment, and I did some more a couple weeks ago. We'll cover those. The proposed alignment, how we're gonna address this pipe, where we're gonna install it, the basic design report. Basically, we'll cover the pipe material, pipe dimension, selection of features along the force main. We'll talk about the permitting path, the pathway of permitting, where we at, what was required, and certainly the final design, and more importantly, the schedule, where we are today and where we need to be. So again, this is the alignment. This is nothing new. You've probably seen the slide before. I thought it may be on GIS. So basically what we're gonna do, we're gonna follow exactly the same alignment. You do have a varying width easement within the cross-country piece. Just keep in mind, this is about 16,000 linear feet, 6,000 of which is in the cross-country, which makes the installation a lot easier and a lot cheaper for that matter. Of course, there's a lot of hoops to jump through with the Brockton Conservation Commission and the permitting task that's involved with the working within the wetland. Currently, it has 4 air release valves and then 3 blow-off manholes. So we ran a software to determine, okay, what is the amount of air release valves going to be required. You could do 4 or 5. I think we're going to stick with 4, just to match the intermediate high points and the high points we have on the alignment, just to make the force main functional. You know, when the force main is looking for air to come into the pipeline, we have these combo air release valves, vacuum relief valves that we're going to put in the high point and in the intermediate high points. And then conversely, if you need to access this force main to be able to drain it down in these low spots, we have a low blow-off manhole where you could just come in, connect to a quick connect, and then let the vector out the sewage from the low points of the force. In the alternative analyses, if you remember last year, we had some challenging situations. Certainly the landfill, and that will continue, not the landfill is one of them, but the junkyard is just more importantly the junkyard. It's a tough, it was a nightmare to get the Brockton auto parts and then the other junkyard to remove the cars because they had cars stacked on top of that force main. And they removed them to do the assessment. And once we're done, I think you go out there today, they put the cars back where they were. So I think we have to have some sort of a contingency here to make sure that once they remove the cars continue to be removed. We can't really allow the cars to be on top of that. And then the landfill, as you can see, the alignment runs in between two landfill caps. And then we'll talk about the implications of that a little bit later here in the presentation. Not an ideal situation, but we have a solution for this that we will discuss in the pipe selection. Back in 2018, we talked about, the 20-inch today. It kind of exceeded its life expectancy. It's been there since 1984. It is cement lined. Usually ductile iron force mains fail from the inside based on hydrogen sulfide and internal corrosion. In this situation, the indication that the failure happened on the outside. And you could blame it on multiple things: the peat, the fibrous material that is in the wetland, the swampland that the force main is installed beneath those profiles, and then most certainly, who knows what's going on from the landfill, right? So if you have a capped landfill with leachate and something is leaking, again, I'm not trying to pin anything, but potentially if you have acidic material coming in from a landfill cap, infiltrating into the trench of the force main, that could potentially attack the ductile material and then ultimately corrode it and fail it. So we'll talk about the concept of what we're doing within the landfill and the pipe selection and the clay dams that we're going to be installing there. Again, back to the slide, back in 2018, we talked about options. And at the time, if you recall, I presented the abandonment of the existing force main, meaning you just leave it in place. You don't do anything to it, and then you install a completely new one parallel to it, and the cost at the time was about 8.7 million. I have to caution that this was 2018. We know with the implications of COVID and supply chains today, and some costs may have increased by quite a bit. And of course, those costs did not include any, they have contingencies in them, but they didn't include any engineering services. And again, those are for 2018 budget. And we also talked about the concept of repairing the existing force main by lining it, cleaning it, CCTV it, assess it, line it, and then of course putting a new force main in to act as a redundant force main. We talked about the alternate 2A plus the cross connection, meaning if you could cross connect the two pipes so you could isolate segments of this pipeline for maintenance purposes, that was an option, and it would have been about 14.7 million at the time. And I think walking out of that meeting and then talking to the board and you guys, I think you indicated that we'll probably go with option number one, which is basically, and this is what we're proceeding with today. We're putting a new force main in, and there will be an alternate bid alternate if there's any money left in the contract. If the bids come in favorable, we have enough money left. Certainly we could clean that force main today, assess it, maybe fix the spots that kind of corroded, or the spots that have shown ruptures or experienced some issues in terms of either corrosion or anything like that. So it is still on the table. So scope of services, under the scope, we are completing a preliminary design, and the preliminary design will serve as a pathway to determine what is required for permitting. And we actually doing this parallel to we proceeding with the permitting task in parallel to the preliminary design. And then of course, in a little bit, as soon as we have completed the permitting, and then the preliminary design, would like to sit down with you on a large table conference room and then flip through the sheets, talk about connections to the Auburn Street facility, the connections from two existing pump station, Auburn Street East and West, to the new force main, and then the connection to the terminus manhole on Southfield Drive. And then of course, we'll look at the pipe material, confirm the layout, and then address any comments that you may have before proceeding to final design. In the final design, we'll talk about pipeline, the alignment, the selection, the force main features, briefly discuss the air release valves and the blow-off manholes, and then the connection to the existing facilities. And then, keep in mind, you know, Auburn Street is such a busy road. I don't think it's in great shape today. The pavement isn't, at least. So by the time we're done with the installation of a new force main on Auburn, you may have to consider, you know, restoration curb to curb, mill and overlay, or maybe permanent trench and an overlay. We'll have to see how, you know, what the cost implications are. In terms of the preliminary design, we, you know, we did run hydraulic analyses on the pump station itself. And I think based on the current conditions today and the operation of the pump station, Total Dynamic had the grade line. I think the pipe, and then of course there's no anticipated build out conditions as we all discussed before, the pipe would be matching exactly what you have out there. It's a 20-inch pipe. 20-inch ductile iron pipe is different than a 20-inch polyethylene pipe or PVC pipe, simply because depending on the standard dimensional ratio, the pipe thickness could vary from, like polyethylene, for instance. If you take the SDR 11, the pipe thickness is almost about 3 inches. If you take a PVC pipe, that is, take a DR 18, for instance, that would be installed in the roadway, that has a wall thickness of a little over 1 inch. And they both rated for good pressure rating. Like the DR 18 is rated for 265 PSI in terms of pressure, and the polyethylene pipe DR 11 would be rated for 235 pounds. If you reduce the standard dimensional ratio from DR 11 to, let's just say, DR 15.5 on the IP side, on the ductile iron pipe size, that, you know, there's a potential reduction in cost while you're still meeting the pressure rating requirements. And again, we'll discuss those in more details a little bit later. Again, the hydraulic analyses that we completed on the Auburn Street pump station, you know, we could, you know, based on current flows, we're meeting TR16 guidelines for velocities. The velocity range between 2.9 feet per second to 3.1. You need that cleansing velocity in the force main to prevent the deposition of solids, to make sure there's nothing is suspended at the base of the pipe. The pump station really doesn't have any headwork, so I'm not sure if you're seeing a whole lot of grit in the system, but we want a system that is robust to be able to overcome. If there is a grit coming into the system, you don't want that grit to be scouring the bottom of the pipeline. So that's why we have to be careful in terms of the pipe thickness, to have enough thickness on the pipeline to overcome any potential grit movement. Again, we talked about no anticipated build out. I think everything is built out. You're not seeing anything coming in the near future. And therefore the pipe was determined to be 20-inch. In terms of the pipe material, we talked about in the roadway, we will go with pressure rated plastic pipe, DR 18. Again, it's rated for about 235 pounds of pressure. We've used DR 18 and Plymouth on the 2 force mains. We're using DR 18 on the Nantucket force main, and it's not as deep, just simply because Nantucket has much less of a right-of-way to be able to put that pipe in. Here, in this instance, the pipe would be almost equivalent to the, in terms of depth, to the existing pipe. We're gonna run in parallel, and in the right-of-way, we will go with a PVC pipe, and the fittings would be ductile iron 401 protector epoxy coated piping, which is very resistant to corrosion. PVC, we all know it doesn't corrode. It doesn't, you know, it has the same characteristics as the ductile iron pipe, and ductile iron pipe has shown in past, you know, it could corrode from the outside as well as it could corrode from the inside. So we're trying to avoid all of that. At the same time, I discussed early on the landfill and the potential leachate that would be coming from the landfill. Anything that is acidic would, you know, if you look at concrete structures like manholes, concrete loves material pH to be around 11 or 12. If there's anything acidic that could potentially eat up the concrete and delaminate the surface on the concrete. So my thought at this point, and again, we'll have to discuss this with you, anything that is in the cross-country easement, I'm considering a polyethylene manhole. It is watertight. You can see it at the bottom of the sheet right here. This is a typical manhole that we use in other applications. You could go you could go through a manhole with a pass-through pipe, or you could do a flange adapter. You could connect the polyethylene with a flange adapter to this existing manhole, and then you make it watertight. Again, the invert will be part of it, will be built in it. It doesn't corrode, and it's resistant to, it's a pretty thick wall. It resists buckling. It is just as good as and it comes in one piece, so it's not taking in any groundwater. The features inside the manhole, like the air release valve, the vacuum relief valve, or the blow-off components certainly would not rust because no water will be coming into it. What you see at the top, this is the polyethylene pipe that we used on the Plymouth project. In Plymouth, they had two pipes, a main pipe, redundant pipe, and an effluent pipe that would bring the treated water from the wastewater treatment plant back to the harbor. You wouldn't have this in this situation. You would only have one pipe. But then again, the benefit from using polyethylene pipe, it works, it's tried and true. If you look at the manhole, any cap manhole, manhole cap, leachate collection, it's all made of polyethylene. So you know it's not gonna corrode, it's not gonna rust. And I think if you put it through the landfill, the Brockton landfill, I think this is the safest bet. The other benefit from polyethylene comes in 50-foot lengths. So basically you could pre-fuse it, make 400 or 500 linear feet of it, dig down, make the trench and drop it in and backfill. It is very comparative. It compares extremely well to the cost of PVC. It's certainly a lot cheaper than ductile iron pipe. And if we reduce the standard dimensional ratio from 11 to 15.5, that potentially we could be saving about $20 per linear foot, but we're still meeting the pressure rating of the pipe. So again, 6,000 linear feet would be in the cross-country piece, and the thought process is to use polyethylene. Everywhere else would be plastic. The bends and the fittings and the restraints would be ductile iron pipes, and that would be a 401 epoxy coated on the inside to resist any corrosion. And as you know, in the analyses when we ran, I think the pipe pulled because it's constantly sitting. So the fear that we had for internal corrosion from the buildup of hydrogen sulfide was almost negligible. But in any event, we thought perhaps the polyethylene pipe would give us that advantage in the cross-country piece. And of course, it's a faster installation and it's cheaper than the comparable pipe. Only if I could get my mouse to work. Bear with me. So I don't know if you're aware, but I think we may have mentioned what really triggered the permitting through the cross-country is the Beaver Brook and the two intermittent streams that kind of exist there. So if we were to do this by open cut, it's going to trigger a slew of permitting obstacles that we'd have to jump through. What we're proposing here is there's a stretch that's about 350 linear feet, and I'm proposing to do this by horizontal directional drill. And I thought originally about doing the pipe and sleeve it in a hose pipe. And usually the hose pipe is a casing, which is, to put in a 20-inch pipe, you probably need a 54-inch casing, which is going to price it way out of our price range. Not to mention, for a borehole that 54 inches is just going to eliminate the little guy, the local guy. So we're probably going to have to rely on Michaels and somebody from Midwest to come in and do this. And I thought we have two options here. If we make a drill 330 feet and we don't sleeve it, we could perhaps As an alternative, we could put in another pipe next to it just in case something were to happen to this pipe in the future. At least we have a segment that's sitting there on standby. That's one thought. Or the other thought would be just simply a single pipe, and we put a gate valve on either side to be able to isolate in case there is a rupture somewhere in the, along this line. But those things will have to be determined as we approach the final design. But I think the thought process is to keep the cost reasonable, and we were pretty comfortable doing one pipe with 2 isolation valves, one on either side of the HDD drill. Again, if we determine that the price of HDD is reasonable, we could consider other options. You know, maybe beneath the junkyard, across the landfill, it's still open for consideration. Again, the price has to be comparable to a normal pipe to be considered. So the other 2 major components would be the connection outside the Auburn Street pump station. So you currently have a live force main, and at some point when the new force main is installed, you want to be able to transfer the flow from the pump station to the new force main and then drain down the current force main here today. So 2 ways we could do that. We could do a life tap, like an insertion valve, on the existing force main that would allow us to tap into this and then come off of the existing force main and install this new one, so we don't have to take the station offline for any period of time. Or the other option would be to pre-assemble everything, and when the time comes to switch the flow, we take the station offline. We do it in the off hours, middle of the night as needed. We'll have a couple frac tanks and vacuum trucks to be able to keep up with the flow coming into the station while the pipe is installed. We're collecting some cost to see what the implications are and see what is the most reasonable, cost-effective way of doing it. I could tell you from experience, insertion valve could be anywhere between 50 to 70 grand. I can't imagine bringing in frac tanks, setting them up for the night or 2 nights, and then having vacuum trucks going back and forth all night long. I don't think that would be any savings doing it this way. But again, we're collecting info and trying to figure out what is the best way to do this, and then go with the most inexpensive option. The other feature is the terminus manhole on Southfield Drive. This was, again, designed to be submerged just for the hydrogen sulfide to stay in solution. To be able to do that, we're going to mimic exactly what we have out there, and we're going to put it downstream from the existing manhole, so that way we're not interrupting the flow. And when the time comes, we'll just stop the existing pipe, drain it back down, and then we'll figure out whether we're going to assess it or we'll just leave it in place. And of course, we talked about the 2 small pump station. As we all know, the Auburn Street East or Auburn Street West, these guys are really not metered. So you only have a flow meter at the Auburn Street facility. And then those 2 stations would have to be tied into the new force main, as well as continue to keep them tied into the old force main. Okay, permitting. So we, as you know, when we did the alternative analyses and we did the clearing of the easement, we've gone through linked with the Brockton Conservation Commission to permit the clearing. And I'm expecting exactly the same level of effort. Dennis, you may want to jump in on this, but I thought we went maybe 4 or 5 times perhaps. And I don't anticipate this be any less. Whitman was pretty straightforward, and then we anticipate to submit on 10/28 to the Brockton Concom, and on 11/3 to the Whitman Conservation Commission. We submitted we completed the pre-construction notification on the PEF, United States Army Corps of Engineers. It's under review, and it's under review internally, and this would be submitted on 10/19 to the U.S. Army Corps. The 401 water quality certification, if we go with the horizontal directional drilling, the thresholds for disturbance would not be met, and therefore the 401 would not be required. Similarly, if we stay within the 5,000 square feet of disturbance and 100 cubic yards of dredging, the Chapter 91 license would not be required. The MIPA, we had a application hearing with MIPA twice, and we are submitting on 10/15 the MIPA. The review period is about 30 days. MIPA has been proactive. We may need to do an environmental impact report or expanded ENF for that matter, just because it's another pipe. But we prepared to complete that when the review comes back. One thing that's not really making this, I did talk with Dennis, and I don't know, Kevin or Bob, if I talked to you, I'm not sure, but, and I think I may have updated you in one of those. We went ahead and submitted an application for the Clean Water Act, State Revolving Fund Program. And the reason we did this, because again, you don't have to do it. It comes in with low interest financing. You qualify for 1.5% interest. And there is a chance based on median household income for the town of Whitman, you may qualify for principal forgiveness from the loan, right? So I did this for the town of Plymouth. Plymouth got about $774,000 in free money from the SRF program. And Plymouth didn't qualify for the low interest rate. They got like 2 or 2.5 interest percent, but you will get about 1.5%. Stillman also will get about 1.5%. So it's worth the trouble. I think the IUP, we submitted the the application. The intended use plan comes back in January, and this is the list of approved projects. I don't see an issue that this project will not be approved through the SRF program. The only downside to that, we have to, there's a checklist, and we have to go through permission from SRF to advertise. They need to review the drawings, and they need to give us permission to award before it goes to construction. And there's certain specifications, certain requirements, like the diesel retrofit program, the WMBE, the federal wage rates would be applicable to this project, but I think in general, it's worth the trouble. I was under the impression that Route 14 is a state highway, and I think Dennis, when we met on site about 2 or 3 weeks ago, when we looked at the set of plan, that the drainage plan that was completed by MassDOT, we thought we would have to have a access. We would need an access permit to access state highway for construction. So we did reach out to MassDOT, and they said it's owned and operated by maintained by the town of Whitman. So therefore, no permitting is required. That's my understanding from MassDOT.
Mm-hmm.
So timeline, the most important one. I'm hoping, and I think I'm pretty positive that we would complete the permitting by December 31st, 2020. The SRF program intended use plan comes out in January 2021. If you decide to want to go that route, I personally prefer to bid any project in the middle of the winter, because this is when contractors are hungry and they want to replenish their backlog. And this is when you get, I have no doubt that this project would be very appealing to a lot of contractors. And I think we're going to advertise it in such a way to make it very competitive, so you get the best for your buck. If we go to the SRF route, the IUP comes out in January. That means we have 2 months window for us to get the permission to advertise and the permission to award. And I think, to be realistic, you bid, you award, and then let's say you have 4 or 5 weeks to be able to award the project in April, and then you go to construction by June 2021. I think it is very realistic, and I think this is, we assigned about 330 calendar days for this construction. I know you're gonna ask about the cost estimate. I started a cost estimate. It's not complete. I am aware that if there is a special that you're gonna need the number, I should be able to provide you this within a day or two. But as we advance the design, I'm trying to wrap up and tighten up some numbers just to be on the safe side. I think this is what I have on this anyway, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Yeah, just on the estimate. So you're looking to get that in, I guess, as a board, or Dennis, I don't know if there's any discussions. We would have to go to a special town meeting this fall to even advertise it. I'd have to check with Frank, but I don't think we can advertise it without funding.
Correct.
I would, yeah. Okay.
All right.
So even
And-
to, Kevin, to get to borrow money from SRF, it has to go through town meeting first, right?
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm asking. Yeah, if you're telling me
Yeah,
that.
it has to. It has to.
Okay.
We've done it in a couple different spots. It has to be voted at town meeting. So the SRF comes back, and let's just say, and I'm just gonna rewind here a little bit. Let's just say you don't have a special this fall, right? And we go through the SRF IUP comes out in January, and they say, okay, you whatever. We threw a number. I forgot what it was. And again, you don't have to take that number. You could take whatever you need. But let's just say SRF approves 14 million or 12 million dollars, and you take that number, you take it to town meeting in the spring, and if they approve it, that's what you have. If they don't approve, it goes back to into the program.
Okay. Is your estimate going to include a full width restoration of Auburn Street?
So that's a very good question. I think we need to, because I'm looking at the pavement. There's a lot of, I don't know how many layers of pavement exist out there. And we're going to try to keep that force main on one side of the road. If we could live with just permanent trench and the roadway behaves well after that permanent trench is installed, maybe that's what we'll do. But I think to be safe, I think we have to make an assumption that we're going to have to do a curb to curb mill and overlay and a permanent trench.
That's what I would want. You know, again, funding is big. I mean, we've been getting complaints on Auburn Street for the last, I don't know, 6-8 months, maybe a year already, you know, before we dig it up.
Well, we were going to have to repave it within the next 3 to 5 years anyways.
Right.
And we can call for a special town meeting, for a single item special town meeting.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to once we get the estimate. And I guess my other question, and maybe trying to piggyback, how much, and I don't need an answer now, how much of Auburn Street will be left unpaved or so we're going to run with the fourth main. Is it a fair amount? Is this something we can maybe look to piggyback and get the whole street done under this project? And then maybe Dennis and Bruce, you could get us some numbers.
I think what we could do, what we could do perhaps is just, usually we estimate, we do the takeoff based on CAD takeoff, right? So the limit of work, whatever's involved. And then we add a small percentage to it just to be safe. If you want to extend a little bit further, we could do bid alternates. We could do like introduce a line item for additional paving, or we could just do it under the same line item. The other piece that I wanted to discuss with the group, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but we, the reason we're here today, 2018, we went to Brockton. We said, okay. Once we clear the easement to make this force main workable and accessible for maintenance purposes, we need to do like a 10-foot gravel road to be able to drive and service these manholes. And they had a lot of heartburn on this issue. So we have to kind of determine what is the treatment there in the end. How are we going to finalize this? Now you keep in mind, I don't know if I mentioned this, but the thought process is to keep the new force main 10 feet away from the existing force main.
Right.
It's a good practice. You don't want them to be too close together, but then at the same time, you want to stay within the easement because you don't want to go through the process of acquiring more easement. I don't think you need that. But I think to make it accessible and to prevent the growth and the vegetation that took place for the last 30 years, in case you need to get in there and then service these valves and service the force main, you really have to have some sort of an access. And I think Brockton was adamant about not allowing us to have that. So we'll have to figure that out and see what type of treatment we want to have there as a final cover. At the same time, we're doing the same thing on Southfield, by the way. If you remember, that's the Brockton, and we have to be careful what Brockton is going to impose on us in terms of restoration on Southfield.
Yeah, do you mind pulling up the street map one more time for me? Go back to the screen. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so there's not a whole lot of Auburn Street left
Right.
in the town, If we're gonna do 90% of the road, let's just do 100% of the road.
And we should go back to the cut that they just made with the intersection.
Absolutely.
Right.
So that way,
Which intersection?
18 and 14.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's not that far there either, right? So that
No, and then we already did from Route 18 to School Street with this last, with the pipe installation. So that would just leave us from Washington Street to School Street.
School
and
Street.
Auburn Street would be complete. And we could do that with Chapter 90 money at some point.
Yeah, I think we definitely, but let's get, Dennis and Bruce get the footages and.
So we could do, we do have the survey. And we could do a CAD takeoff just to determine what is the, what is the amount of paving and restoration is going to be done. Usually on state highway, Bruce, you may have a better idea here, but on state highway, usually they want you to put 7 inches. Now, in the past, I did 123 within the town of Norwell. And that was the same thing as Route 14 here, Auburn Street, because they said it's not under the jurisdiction of Mass DOT. So we're able to do 4.5 inches. Two binder, 2 intermediate, 1.5 inch top. But that was a total rebuild. Here, I don't think you need to do this. If you have a good base, we could just perhaps do the permanent trench and then mill and overlay.
Yeah, I think if we did a mill and a binder and a top, 1.5, 1.5, or 2 and 1.5 or something,
Typically we mill and then they do a leveling course with some sort of binder, small binder, and then they do the top. I think that would be sufficient on the remaining part of Route 14. There's certainly plenty of asphalt there.
So one of my thoughts, I was going to suggest to see if Brockton would allow this and see if you guys are on board. If we're making this this force main accessible within the cross-country piece, I really think that a 10-foot, gravel road would be ideal. And I thought maybe if we could mill, and we'll have the contractor put that milling on that within the easement, so you don't have to purchase that gravel. I mean, that would be ideal for us.
Will that be allowed by the Conservation Commission in Brockton?
Well, we'll have to fight that fight, and we'll have to ask. I guess we'll see what they say. I mean, we could do a, you could backfill on top of the pipe, and then you put like filter fabric, and then just lay down that 3-4 inches of process, which is the
Millings. Yep.
the millings, right? And that would be just perfect.
That makes a great road.
Yep.
Step road.
Yeah.
Okay. We got one last. Ziad, any concerns? And I think with hazardous soils, or will we have a good idea if there is or isn't any hazardous soils for the estimate?
I got some samples. I'm a little bit concerned if there's any. I carried some cost for asbestos concrete piping, because you don't know, you find them on any job.
Yep.
I have some contingency for that. I have some contingency for soil management. We did test, Kevin, and I didn't really see anything that would require us to ship it to a landfill, right? I'm sure there'll be some excess material by the time you do the bedding and the trenching and all this, right? So there'll be some leftover that the contractor would have to dispose of. But the sampling that we got, nothing shows as if you have to ship it to a landfill or a special arrangement to either take it to Overlook or Bourne or whatever.
Okay. So I'll less than RCS one. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I
Would we,
also put in 3-4 monitoring wells just to see what the impact of groundwater. Amazingly enough, when we did this 2018, where the whole thing was saturated. We're just sitting in swamps, right? Just recently, and I don't know, maybe it's an anomaly because of the drought, we didn't see much groundwater, but nonetheless, we kept these monitor wells, and we're going to measure them, and we'll see what happens here between now and Christmas. You see where the groundwater is, and I'm going to send a drill rig again one more time to make sure that we don't have any ledge where we're proposing the horizontal drilling there for the under the brook.
Yeah, so yeah, I was kind of going back to soils, ledge, and rock. You set up like allowances or unit costs for some of those items, or maybe a minimum amount in our contract?
Yeah, Dave, I do. I have contingencies for test pits. I have contingencies for rock, and I also have soils and AC pipe.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, good.
All right. I don't have anything else. I mean, I think we're moving in the right direction, and I think the next step, you keep
What
doing
I
what
really
you do.
like to do is and I don't know how comfortable you feel. I could email you or mail you 11 by 17. I'm really developing right now with my group those major connections, and the one at the Auburn Street pump station. We putting a access point or pig launcher, whatever you want to call it, to be able to access the force main there. And then those major connections, the alignment details, I'd like to send them over to you. Either we could meet in person, go over them, or we could just send them over to you, and then we'll see what your comments are going to be. But I'd like to get you involved in that and get your input.
Yeah, I think send them out. If you got them electronically,
Yeah.
send them out. We can take a look, and each board member can look at them and compile comments. And
at a moment's notice, if you feel like, again, I am prepared based on my discussion with Dennis, if ever you need like in the gym and you need a cost estimate, moment's notice, I could produce one. It is in the works. I'm just trying to, down cost and get a better sense of quantities and things of that nature. And I'll be ready in a day or so to provide one if I have to.
Very good.
okay, sounds good.
Yeah, thanks. No, that was a great
Thank you,
PowerPoint.
Gab.
I appreciate the time. No problem.
So we had the building proposal on there. I know, Peter, I see you're on here. I apologize, we're running a little late. I don't want to go great. I mean, I went through it. My only, again, I think it's all going in the right directions. What we want to do gets us everything moving. My only question was, what of this, say we move forward with these engineering services, what, if any of this can be rolled into a final design? Will we get some, use of what you guys prepare that ultimately can become bid documents to build a new building?
Yeah,
I
that's
was just curious, on how much return we're going to get for the money we spend.
I totally get this. So basically, the mass laws and the designer selection, that's part of the reason you have to stay under 30 grand. when you get into a building, whether it's pre-engineered, today you can't do modular construction anymore, right? Because they got rid of that. So from the conceptual schematic design, you could take the layout and then develop it. Under the proposal that we provided, I think it was going to be a couple options, a couple different layouts. If you choose one of them, you could certainly use that and then develop it a little further. What I was explaining to Bruce and Dennis and then Bob last time we met, there is a fair amount of effort. You get into the file sub-bid laws, you got HVAC, you got plumbing, you got electrical. It really does add up, and you have to produce a full document. You can't just simply do a schematic and then send it to the contractor and say, hey, here you go, build it. Those days are gone, I think. The other way you could perhaps do it, one time I was doing, I'm doing actually the Dennis transfer station building for the town of Dennis. And it's about 6,000 square foot building. I was calling building suppliers, and there was a building in Tennessee that was available it was 6,000 square feet exactly. They were willing to ship it for $72,000, right? It's all designed, prefabricated, built, ready to go. But I don't think you have a mechanism to be able to purchase something like that. You have to, whatever.
No, we don't.
No, it's very difficult. So this is like, now you're talking of 100 by 175 foot building. It is massive. What can you use? You're going to use the floor plan. You're going to use one of the elevations, and then you're going to develop everything else. The 6,000 square foot building ends up being 74 sheets for the town of Dennis. So it has 13 or 14 sheets of architectural. It has 10 sheets of structural. It had between MEP a total of 24 sheets, instrumentation controls, fire alarm, sprinkler system, all of that. It adds up, and it's 74. How much can you use? Yeah, you could use what you have, but I think the cost to continue, I think you really have to go through the design selection and get an OPM on this.
Okay.
I think this is really going to help you. This study is going to help you to, figure out exactly what you could do, how much is going to be to build this 100 by 175 foot building, and what the cost implications are going to be, right? That's just a starting point. But we did the same thing. We did schematic design for Dennis. We used the architectural drawing as a base, and then we developed them from there.
Okay.
Could we possibly add to that just a conceptual drawing of what the exterior may look like? I think that at town meeting, that may be helpful if we had that available to the voters. Just something for them to see what it possibly could look like.
Yeah, Bruce, there's a rendering involved there and included in that scope.
Okay.
I think there is 2 floor plans, 2 cross sections, and a rendering on the outside from the street. And on the civil side, I was going to do a utility relocation, because if you notice within the proposed footprint of the addition, there's some manholes and piping that would have to be relocated, and then of course the parking has to be addressed also, based on the use and the people using the facility. So it'd be like a site plan, parking plan, utility plan, 2 floor plans for the layout, and then rendering on what the elevations of the building are going to look like, and a cost estimate.
Good.
Okay. Like I said, I didn't have any specific questions. I think members can look at it a little more, and we can talk about it on Tuesday if we want to move forward and, get a contract going. All right. Anything else? Anyone else got anything for Ziad?
Nope.
Thank you.
We
Definitely.
just need a funding
Thank you.
source.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ziad.
We'll
All
talk
right.
soon.
Thank you, Ziad.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
We'll
Have a
see.
good night. All right. I don't know if you can hear us, Peter.
I can.
All right. So we need to, someone make a motion to go into executive session in accordance with, but that has to be in the motion, right, Peter? Someone should say that in the motion. I shouldn't say that. The reason.
You should make the declaration that an open session be detrimental, but
All right, so we need to go in executive session in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, is that paragraph 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to clearly and indemnity threatened and demonstrably likely litigation if an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and chair so declares.
and do you so declare?
Yes, I do. So if someone,
I make that motion.
Second. Oh, do you need?
all right, motion made by Wayne, seconded. We have to do a roll call vote. Wayne,
Aye.
Dave,
Yes.
Ken,
Aye, yes.
and I am a yes. All right. So,
Yep, it's recording.
all right. Okay. We're in the cloud. All right. Just finish up a couple things. Bruce, you had a couple employee.
Yes, I didn't want to put it off till Tuesday. I just wanted to get moving on this. As you know, the mechanic moved on. We had one employee express an interest to move into the head mechanic's position. He has done that for the last couple of weeks, and he's done quite well. I would ask the board to appoint Ryan Harrington as the new master mechanic and move his pay up to, I believe it's the W19C, and preferably retro back to October 5th.
Bruce, a question out of curiosity. Is he the one that originally did not want the position
Yes.
and he took it temporarily?
Well, he never expressed that he did not want officially. He never expressed anything to me until he handed the letter saying he was interested.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Yeah, he's,
Sorry, go ahead.
from what I'm hearing, he's doing a great job, so,
Good.
and that's good. That's what we need there. Jimmy was a good guy, but,
Yeah.
um,
Kind of a shame he left.
yep.
I was gonna ask, is there any certifications that he needs that he has or needs to get, kind of thing?
There is no certifications that we require of the head mechanic except for the hoisting license and the CDL, which he has. Actually, he has several hoisting licenses. He has a 2A, a 4B, and a 1C. So those are all heavy equipment. The 2A, excavators, loaders, backhoes. He can run small cranes, which is helpful because we have one, and he can also run the catch basin truck. So he's really loaded up on his hoisting licenses, and he also has a Class A CDL.
That's great.
So-
Oh, good. Okay, great. Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion that we appoint him as the master mechanic, effective immediately, at the step that Bruce discussed.
I'll second that.
I guess I want to, any issue with amending it, as Bruce said, back to October 5th, if he was performing the duties?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, yes.
All right, so the motion to promote a master mechanic effective 10/5. All in favor, Wayne,
Aye.
Dave,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
and I am yes. Okay. And then we
the
got
other-
Josh Coots.
Yep, the other employee issue is Josh Coots. He had accidentally let his hoisting license lapse, so therefore we had moved him down to truck driver laborer. And due to COVID, they were not testing, so he had to wait until just this week. And he went over and he took 3 hoisting tests, so he actually added an additional license. And so I'd like to reinstate him back to a Class A operator, C, and that would be effective the 12th. So that would be effective next Monday.
Yep, he went out and did what he needed to do to get him back, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, make a motion that we reestablish him as a Class A with his hoisting license.
Seconded.
All right, motion is second. All in favor, Wayne,
Aye.
Dave,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. All right, Josh has got his new step back.
Hey, Bruce, I have
Very
a
good.
curiosity. What?
Thank you.
Hey, Bruce,
What was that, Ken?
I was gonna ask you, I saw there were 2 positions advertised. Well, one of them for the assistant mechanic? Or
Yeah,
they
that's what I was gonna say.
both truck driver laborers?
Yeah, we have two truck driver laborers positions open at this time. The mechanic's position is still pending the outcome of an employee who's out right now. So yes, we definitely have 2 bodies that we need, truck driver laborer. I've advertised on Indeed. I've advertised on the Mass Municipal website. We put it on social media, and we also have our little sign in front of the building. So we've had some decent results, and Dennis and I hope to present several resumes to you Tuesday next week, so we can select some gentlemen to bring in for interviews at the November meeting, and hopefully make a hire that night.
Great.
So we'll have some people to drive our plows.
Good enough.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Bruce.
So the only thing we got is the water and sewer commitment for October 15th. So we have a water commitment of $1,453,240.46. Sewer, $936,205.29. For total $2,389,445.75, and an additional $150 in service charges. You want to make a? I guess, Amy, what's the service? What's the service charges, Amy? Just curious.
So that was just a frozen meter fee.
Oh, okay.
You looking for a motion, Kevin?
Yes, I'm looking for a motion, please.
Motion to accept the water and sewer commitments as read.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion second. All in favor, Wayne,
Aye.
Dave,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So, Amy, we got to go by and sign that? Is that?
Yes, please, if you guys could come by tomorrow possibly and sign it. I have to get it up to Mary Beth before next week.
I'll be in the morning.
Amy, is that
I
something
went by and put the third signature on the bills today, so those are all set. So you can get those.
Thanks, Kevin.
And I took my ethics test. I failed.
Oh, I can't fill that. I didn't fill that.
You have to have ethics?
Depends who you ask. But I guess did Ken and Dave have to do that too, Amy? I saw packages for them.
Yes, they both have packages. I think you were the only one that has to take the test.
Oh, lucky me.
Yeah, I did it. We did it when we got reelected, I believe. We got to do it then.
I got my certificate. I got it right here. I'll send it.
Oh, good.
Nice.
You need to get me a copy of that so I can get it to the town hall.
Frame it.
I'll send it up in the morning.
They didn't leave me a packet. They give up.
the water
Bother.
commitment, Amy?
I'm sorry, Ken, what did you say?
Water commitment, is that something I already signed? Was that there Tuesday or no?
No.
No, it was not.
Okay, so I gotta come in to do that. Okay, not a problem.
Let me ask, does DPW observe Columbus Day, Monday, October 12th as a holiday?
We do.
Yeah, as a commissioner, Dave, you can take the day off.
Yeah, it is a holiday.
No, that's fine. I'm glad it is for you. Tomorrow might be difficult to get in. I thought I could get in, but if you three can get in,
I can get that tomorrow. Yeah,
Yes, I should be able to. So,
I'll get that tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll be there,
All right, that's all we had on the agenda.
right?
Someone wants to make a
Motion to adjourn?
seconded.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So,
All right.
13.
Good night, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.